Welcome back to another short episode of Silicon Wafers. Today we talk about kinetic sanctions, Ukraine's war on Russia's oil lifelines. In this episode, the refinery fires, the blown pipelines, and a petrostate suddenly rationing the one thing it was structured to export. Ukraine calls these strikes kinetic sanctions, and the intensity and scale, as well as the plumes of acrid smoke rising across Russia, certainly attest to that. Gasoline becomes a scarce liquid. Let's start where the pressure is most visible, near Moscow. Ukrainian drones struck Transneft's Vtorovo oil pumping station in Vladimir Oblast, an artery feeding diesel and petrol flows towards the capital. The commander of Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Force, Robert Madyar Brovdi, said plainly the oil pumping station that pumps or was pumping diesel fuel to the Moscow Ring oil product pipeline. He added gasoline is becoming a scarce liquid, and gas and oil are flammable. Well, I can picture a very knowing smile on his face when he uttered that. This was reported by Julia Struck in the Kyiv Post, dated September 9th, 2025. Brovdi credited fighters of the 14th USF Regiment. Ukrainian OSINT published satellite imagery indicating at least two tanks were damaged. The broader context matters. Moscow has already imposed a ban on gasoline exports, and Ukrainian cyber units reportedly disrupted fuel card payments to deepen the shock. Details and attribution are contained in the same Kyiv Post report. Why was this target set? Because fuel is Russia's real center of gravity, the source of wealth, the source of power and leverage. When pumping stations, depots, and refineries pause, the battlefield slows, prices spike, and the Kremlin's aura of control takes a massive hit. Three booms, one message, the pipeline war. Within a single 24-hour window, a string of explosions hit energy infrastructure deep inside Russia, Penza in the Volga region and Saratov further south. Ukrainian intelligence sources told reporters that multiple gas conduits near Penza were knocked out after at least four pre-dawn blasts. Hours later, a strike was reported on the Kubyshev-Lysychansk trunk oil pipeline in Saratov. Officials in Penza tried to pass it off as planned exercises, but the pattern is getting hard to wave away and cover up. This is from an article in Kyiv Post by Katerina Zakharchenko, dated September 9th, 2025. And of course, this is not isolated. In recent weeks, Unmanned, a major Druzhba pipeline hub, was also hit, part of the focused Ukrainian campaign against the pipeline web that feeds both Russia's war machine and, via transit, EU holdouts like Hungary and Slovakia. As Reuters summarized, Ukraine says inflicted comprehensive fire damage on sections of Druzhba in Russia's Bryansk region. While flows to EU buyers reported stable that day, the signal was unmistakable. Even legacy Soviet arteries are well within Ukrainian reach. Again from Reuters, dated September 7th. The narrative tug of war is also familiar. Local Russian outlets claim that drone debris or some kind of mythical drills are to blame. Ukraine frames it as a lawful interdiction of war-sustaining infrastructure. I think the moral and legal arguments are definitely on Ukraine's side, so long as the fuel is dual use and has a strategic military purpose. The only sanctions that bite are kinetic sanctions. Recent Ukrainian drone attacks have shut down facilities accounting for at least 17% of Russia's oil refining capacity. That peaked at an estimate saying that up to 24% was hit. That equates to 1.1 million barrels of crude a day. That figure fluctuates as new sites are hit. Some sites are struck again repeatedly, and others brought back online by Russian engineers. This is from a Reuters piece dated September 1st. Follow-up strikes reinforce the point and make it far harder to bring plants back up to full capacity, and there is a strategic pattern emerging of multiple strikes on the same facilities continuing into September, hitting Ryazan, Saratov, Volgograd, Krasnodar and more. Russia has repeatedly halted or cut runs at the affected plants. That is in Reuters September 5th and September the 1st dated articles. It's also spilling into policy and prices. Russia extended its gasoline export ban and may prolong it again because domestic stocks are thin during the peak seasonal demand as well. So again, the Ukrainian timing couldn't be better. That's from Reuters dated September 4th and August 1st. Energy analysts and national security writers have started to use Ukraine's own phrase, kinetic sanctions. The argument, the free world hesitated to sanction Russia oil hard, Ukrainian drones did not. As the cipher brief put it, Kiev's long-range strikes have hit Moscow where it hurts most, with rationing, soaring wholesale prices, and suspended gasoline exports. It is a political headache for a regime that tries to sell stability to the people. I was about to say who voted for it. That, of course, is pushing reality a little bit too far. This is from David Kidichenko in the Cipher Brief. That also cites material from The Economist and official data. Even markets away from Europe are reacting. Refining margins in the US could improve as Russian output stumbles and differentials move. Again, Reuters, September 9th. Moral clarity goes hand in hand with the strategic implications. Oil funds the invasion. When Ukrainian strikes degrade refinery throughput and pipeline reliability, they directly cut into Russia's ability to pay for missiles that obliterate Ukrainian apartment blocks. In that sense, this is the sanctions that finally land, because they don't rely on unanimous votes in Brussels or carve-outs in Washington. This is not a sanction susceptible to endless two-week tacos. What it means for Russia, they are in a classic wartime bind. Do they divert crude to keep domestic pumps supplied or prioritize exports for hard currency? Well, these are the rational options, but of course the Kremlin is doing neither. It is guaranteeing the military has primary access to fuel supplies, especially in the occupied territories and Crimea, even if that means that civilians and businesses go without and export revenues take a hit. IEA tracking shows oil and fuel export revenues fell in August to among the lowest levels since the full-scale invasion, with lower volumes and Urals prices near the level of the oil price cap. That's from IEA summary via Reuters, September 11th. The long-term picture is not good for Russia either. The EU is reaffirming, admittedly under US pressure, its 2028 deadline to end Russian oil and gas totally from the European territory, and is working up measures to close all of the transit loopholes. That is from Reuters reporting September 11th and September 5th. Ukraine is costing Russia a fortune by using cheap drones and a methodical strategy. Rarely in the history of warfare have the ratios of cost to impact been this favorable to a combatant. Long-range drones, smart targeting, and synchronized cyber attacks like the fuel card network disruptions reported earlier this week let Kyiv price in the war inside Russia. Ukraine's kinetic sanctions have become a major line item in Russia's war budget.